Imagine this. One of the richest men in history, Andrew Carnegie, made a bold proposal to a young journalist to dedicate 20 years of his life discovering the secrets behind true success. Now, think about it. What if these secrets were revealed to the world? Who would try to stop it? And how far would someone go to protect truths that could change millions of lives? This isn't just a story about wealth. It's about courage, unexpected alliances, and a fight against powerful forces who wanted to keep success for themselves. Get ready, because what you're about to hear is a journey filled with intrigue, discovery, and twists you won't see coming. It all starts with a simple invitation, and ends with a legacy that changed the world. Stay until the end, because every chapter holds a revelation that will keep you hooked from start to finish. The year was 1908. A cold wind drifted through the streets of Pittsburgh, carrying with it the scent of coal, smoke, and steel. The city pulsed with industry. Factories belched fire into the night sky, and trains rumbled along the tracks, heavy with iron and ambition. Amid this restless energy, a young man named Napoleon Hill found himself standing at the gates of a mansion that seemed carved out of another world. The home of Andrew Carnegie loomed before him. Stone walls, tall windows lit with golden lamps, and the faint echo of laughter drifting from within. Napoleon was only 25, a journalist still trying to make his name, and tonight he had been invited for what he thought was a simple interview with the great industrial titan. Yet as he straightened his tie and stepped up the marble stairs, his chest tightened with a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. Inside, the mansion was alive with warmth. A grand chandelier scattered light across polished wood and velvet curtains. The butler, a stiff man with sharp eyes, led Napoleon through long corridors until finally, the doors of the study opened. Carnegie sat by the fire, his frame small but commanding, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who had bent steel and fortune to his will. "Ah, Mr. Hill," he said, rising slowly. "Come closer. I have been reading your work. You ask questions most men are afraid to ask. That is promising." Napoleon felt his throat dry. "It is an honor to meet you, sir. I hoped only to ask about your journey, your thoughts on industry." Carnegie chuckled, waving his hand. "Industry? Steel? My boy, that is not why I brought you here. I have questions for you." He gestured for Napoleon to sit. The fire cracked, throwing sparks into the dim room. Carnegie leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something between mischief and gravity. "Tell me, Hill, do you believe success is a matter of chance? Or can it be understood, taught, passed from one man to another as one passes knowledge of fire or language?" Napoleon hesitated. "I believe there must be principles, though I cannot yet name them." "Good," Carnegie said, his voice low. "Because I have long suspected the same. For years I have dreamed of a philosophy of success, not built on luck or privilege, but on truths any man may follow. And I believe you, young as you are, might be the one to uncover it." Napoleon blinked. "Me? Yes. I offer you no money, no promise of fame. Only the task. Dedicate 20 years of your life to studying the world's most accomplished men. Discover what they share, habits, virtues, thoughts, and from it, craft a philosophy that can be taught to anyone." The fire popped. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than iron. Napoleon's mind spun. 20 years. He was poor, unknown, barely scraping by. His mother had dreamed he might become a lawyer, something respectable, something safe. To accept such a mission would mean surrendering certainty, stepping into a wilderness of doubt. Carnegie's gaze softened. "I will open my network to you. The Edisons, the Fords, the great minds of this age. You will have access others only dream of. But the sacrifice will be yours. Will you take it?" For a long moment, only the fire spoke. Then, with a breath that seemed to lift a weight from his chest, Napoleon said quietly, "Yes, I will do it." Carnegie smiled, leaning back in his chair. "Then perhaps history will remember not only those who built empires of steel, but the man who discovered how such empires are built at all. Later, as Napoleon left the mansion, the winter air struck him like a baptism. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and fierce determination. He felt the night stretch wide and endless before him, and for the first time, he sensed the path of his life bending toward something far greater than himself. But as the butler helped him with his coat, he slipped a folded piece of paper into Napoleon's hand. The handwriting was hurried, the ink smudged. It read, "Beware. Not all who succeed want their secrets revealed." Napoleon looked up into the darkness of the street, the note trembling in his fingers. The city roared with machines and ambition, but somewhere inside its noise lurked a shadow. And thus his journey began. Weeks later, the noise of Pittsburgh had given way to the restless heartbeat of New York City. The streets were alive with carriages clattering over cobblestones, the hiss of steam engines, and the occasional sputter of a new automobile that turned heads as if it were magic on wheels. Towering buildings rose higher each year, and advertisements shouted from every corner, reminders that ambition had found its capital here. Napoleon Hill walked with his notebook tucked under his arm, his eyes sharp, his heart still carrying the weight of Carnegie's challenge. The steel magnate had opened doors, and now those doors led him to the titans of invention, finance, and industry. But first, he needed allies. At the offices of the New York Herald, he met Clara Reynolds, a young editor known for her sharp pen and sharper tongue. Her office smelled of ink and cigarette smoke, stacks of manuscripts piled precariously high. She looked him over with an eyebrow raised. "So," she said, crossing her arms, "you're the young dreamer Carnegie has sent running after secrets. Do you really think you can reduce success to a formula?" Napoleon smiled faintly, though his palms were damp. "Not a formula, Miss Reynolds. A philosophy. A set of truths that men and women can live by, no matter their station." Clara tilted her head, unconvinced but curious. "Bold words. Bold words make good stories. If you're serious, I'll write about you. But know this, the moment you stumble, the city will laugh louder than it ever cheered." Despite her skepticism, Napoleon sensed an ally, though perhaps one who would test him as much as the journey itself. That evening, in a workshop cluttered with wires, glass tubes, and half-finished devices, Napoleon sat across from Thomas Edison himself. The inventor's hair was wild, his eyes alive with restlessness. "Persistence," Edison said, tapping a finger against the table. "Write it down. I failed 1,000 times before a filament held light. Most men quit after 10. Success is not about genius. It is about refusing to stop." The words struck Napoleon deeply. Here was proof that determination was more powerful than fortune or talent alone. But late that night, when Napoleon returned to his modest rented room, the air felt wrong. His papers had been shifted, his notes disturbed. On his desk lay a scrap of paper, hastily written in dark ink. "Stop asking questions." Napoleon froze. The city outside still roared with ambition, but in the silence of his room, he felt the cold presence of something else, an unseen hand that had already begun to follow his every move. And for the first time, he understood that this mission was not only about discovering success, it was about surviving long enough to share it. By now, Napoleon's name had begun to travel in whispers through the corridors of power. His meetings with inventors and businessmen caught the attention of those who preferred to keep the world blind to the methods behind their fortunes. And in a dim, smoke-filled club on Wall Street, a gathering of men discussed him with low, dangerous voices. At the center sat Richard Bennett, a financier whose reputation for ruthless deals was matched only by his hunger for control. His eyes were sharp as glass, his suit immaculate. He tapped a cigar against the table and said, "This Hill fellow thinks he can uncover the mechanics of success? If he succeeds, gentlemen, he will make kings into beggars. Do we want the masses believing they can rise as we have?" The others murmured their disapproval. Bennett leaned forward. "Then we silence him." Quietly, but firmly. That same night, in his cramped apartment, Napoleon pored over his notes by lamplight. The words of Edison still rang in his mind. Persistence, persistence, persistence. Yet his pen trembled as he remembered the warning slips, the strange eyes following him through the streets. A sudden knock startled him. It was Clara Reynolds, her cheeks red from the cold, her hands clutching a stack of newspapers. She closed the door behind her, lowering her voice. "Napoleon, you've made enemies. I heard it in the newsroom. Powerful men are talking about you, and not kindly." Napoleon exhaled slowly, his shoulders heavy. "They fear what they cannot control. They would rather success remain a mystery, a secret passed down only to the few." Clara placed a firm hand on his arm. "Then we cannot let them win. If they threaten you, it means you are already closer to the truth than they'd like." But their determination was soon tested. Just past midnight, the crackle of flames ripped through Napoleon's building. Smoke choked the hallways as neighbors screamed. Clara grabbed his hand, dragging him through the chaos. They stumbled into the freezing street, coughing, as fire devoured his room and with it, almost every note he had gathered. Napoleon stared at the blaze, his face streaked with ash. And through the terror, a strange calm rose inside him. He clenched his fists and whispered, almost to himself, "If they want to stop me, then I know I am on the right path." The fire roared higher, but his resolve burned brighter still. The ashes of his apartment still lingered in Napoleon's thoughts, but the fire had not destroyed his spirit. With Clara's encouragement, he began again, this time with sharper focus and a growing sense that fate itself was testing him. His journey carried him westward to Chicago, a city alive with commerce and invention, where every street seemed to vibrate with the hum of ambition. It was here that Napoleon met Henry Ford, the man who was reshaping transportation and redefining the American dream. Ford's factory floor thundered with the rhythm of machines, men working in perfect coordination as lines of unfinished automobiles moved steadily forward. The sight was mesmerizing, a living symbol of progress. Ford himself was blunt, his eyes keen and restless. "Don't waste your life following the crowd, Hill," he said, his voice rising above the clang of hammers. "Think for yourself, or you'll spend your days building the dreams of others. That is the law of industry." Napoleon scribbled furiously in his notebook, but more than the words, he absorbed the conviction behind them, the fierce independence that powered men like Ford. Soon after, in a quieter setting, he met Orville Wright, one half of the duo who had conquered the skies. Unlike Ford, Orville spoke gently, his manner thoughtful, as if each word carried the weight of the wind itself. "When Wilbur and I built our machine," Orville said, men laughed. They said it was impossible. Yet belief, Hill, lifts men higher than wings. Without it, you will never rise from the ground. The contrast between the two mentors struck Napoleon deeply. Ford's defiance of conformity, Wright's devotion to belief. Both, however, pointed to an invisible thread tying success together, a state of mind, a force no obstacle could crush. Meanwhile, Clara's series of articles, The Philosopher of Success, began to circulate in newspapers. Readers devoured every word, fascinated by the young journalist chasing the secrets of greatness. But admiration was not universal. In a shadowed office back in New York, Richard Bennett slammed one of Clara's articles onto his desk. His voice was sharp, dripping with fury. "She is as dangerous as he is. If this continues, the world will believe they can make themselves into giants. That cannot happen." Far from the smoke and threats, Napoleon closed his notebook after another long day of interviews. For the first time, he felt a fragile framework forming, principles that could change lives. Yet as Clara opened an envelope slipped beneath her office door, her face paled. The words inside were chilling. "Your career or your life. Choose." Clara's hands trembled as she set the threatening letter on the table between them. The firelight flickered against the paper, the ink still fresh, the words heavy with menace. "Your career or your life. Choose." Napoleon looked at her, his brow furrowed. "Clara, this has gone too far. It was one thing for them to come after me, but now you are in their sights. Her jaw tightened. Do you think I can turn away now? If I let fear silence me, I'll never write a line worth reading again. This, she tapped the letter with sudden force, is proof that our words matter. They are afraid. Though her defiance inspired him, Napoleon could not shake the weight of guilt. Together, they left the chaos of the city for a small town, seeking a few days of quiet and safety. The train carried them through fields and forests, away from the steel and smoke, until they arrived in a place where life moved slower, where people still greeted each other on the streets by name. It was there, in the corner of a humble general store, that Napoleon found unexpected wisdom. The shopkeeper, a graying man with worn hands, spoke with quiet pride about keeping his business alive through hardships and lean winters. I don't have millions, the man said, arranging sacks of flour, but I have something worth more: persistence. You wake up each day, you work honest, and you refuse to quit, even when quitting seems easier. That's how you survive. Napoleon listened intently. These were not the words of a titan of industry, but of an ordinary man who embodied the very same principle Edison had once spoken: persistence. It struck Napoleon like a revelation. Success was not limited to men of great fortune, but was born from virtues accessible to all. That night, as Clara wrote by candlelight, Napoleon sat at the desk, his notebook open but his thoughts clouded. What if Carnegie was wrong? He asked quietly. What if success cannot be taught? What if it is only a dream? Clara looked up, her eyes steady and unflinching. Then why, she asked softly, are they so desperate to stop you from proving it? Her words settled into him like steel into stone. He closed his notebook, resolve flickering back to life. The next morning, a telegram arrived at the inn. The envelope bore the seal of Carnegie himself. Napoleon tore it open, his pulse quickening as he read the message. Return at once. Urgent. The train carried Napoleon and Clara back to Pittsburgh, its whistle echoing across the hills like a warning. Napoleon clutched Carnegie's telegram, his mind racing. Whatever awaited them, it had the weight of urgency and danger. Inside the steel magnate's mansion, the atmosphere was different from before. The grand hall seemed colder, and the once vigorous Andrew Carnegie looked diminished, his shoulders bent, his face drawn by age and worry. Hill, he said softly, his Scottish accent tinged with fatigue. You must understand, your work has stirred forces that do not forgive. I have enemies. Even I cannot always name them. If they stop you, the dream dies. Napoleon leaned forward, his voice urgent. Then help me, Mr. Carnegie. Tell me who they are. Let me face them openly. But before Carnegie could answer, voices drifted from the adjoining study. Napoleon, led by curiosity and unease, stepped quietly closer. Through the half-open door, he saw Carnegie speaking with none other than Richard Bennett. You must call him off, Andrew, Bennett growled, his eyes glinting like steel. If Hill continues, he'll unravel everything. Knowledge in the hands of the many, chaos. Power must remain with the few who can wield it. Napoleon's chest tightened. The betrayal struck deep. Carnegie, his benefactor, seated across from the very man plotting his downfall. Carnegie's reply was weary, but firm. Richard, I cannot stop him. The boy must choose his own path. And perhaps the world deserves to know what we have kept hidden. The words offered little comfort. When Napoleon entered the room, both men fell silent. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. So it's true. You brought me into this knowing it would set me against men who would rather see me dead. Carnegie looked at him with a mixture of regret and pride. Yes, because I knew only someone willing to risk everything could carry this burden. The choice is still yours, Hill. Abandon this path and live in peace, or continue and face war. Napoleon glanced at Clara. She nodded, her jaw set, though fear lingered in her eyes. I will not stop, Napoleon declared. Not for you, not for Bennett, not for anyone who hides truth from the world. That night, as they boarded a train back toward New York, danger struck swiftly. Shadows moved through the aisles, armed men searching each cabin, their orders clear. Napoleon and Clara slipped out into the freezing night, tumbling into the darkness beyond the tracks, their breath visible in sharp bursts of fear. Behind them, the train roared forward, carrying their pursuers. Ahead, only uncertainty waited. The mountains rose like silent sentinels, their peaks wrapped in snow and mist. In a small wooden cabin hidden among the pines, Napoleon and Clara found refuge. The world outside was hostile, but here, for a brief moment, there was quiet, only the sound of the wind brushing against the roof and the crackle of the fire in the hearth. Napoleon filled page after page with hurried writing. His notes, once scattered and fragile, began to take shape. Principles emerged with clarity: desire, faith, persistence, the power of a mastermind alliance. Each word felt like a weapon forged in fire, drawn not only from interviews with great men, but from the trials of his own life. Clara sat nearby, reading by candlelight. Her voice was hushed but firm as she looked up from his manuscript. "Napoleon, this isn't just a book. This is a revolution. You're giving people the keys they were never meant to hold." Her words both inspired him and filled him with dread. A revolution invited enemies, and enemies had already found them once. One night, as snow fell heavily outside, the silence was broken by the crunch of footsteps. Shadows flickered at the window. Napoleon's blood froze. Before he could act, the door burst open. Men in heavy coats, their eyes hard, their pistols glinting. "Bennett sends his regards," one of them spat. Napoleon and Clara ran into the storm, snow biting at their faces as the men pursued. The forest became a blur of trees and darkness. Breathless, Napoleon stumbled, shouting for Clara, but she was seized, her cries muffled as the men dragged her away into the night. He fell to his knees in the snow, his body battered, his pages nearly lost in the chaos. Desperation clawed at his chest. For a moment, hopelessness threatened to consume him. But then he clutched his notebook to his chest, the words within burning like fire. He lifted his face to the night sky, his voice raw, defiant, unyielding. "I will not stop. Even if it costs me everything, I will finish this." The mountains echoed his cry, and though Clara was gone, and danger closed in, Napoleon's purpose blazed brighter than the storm. The final battle had begun. Weeks passed before the storm of violence quieted. Napoleon emerged from the mountains battered, his clothes torn, his face marked with exhaustion, but his notebook still clutched tightly in his hands. Clara, though scarred by her ordeal, had survived as well, her spirit unbroken. They returned to New York, no longer fugitives in hiding, but survivors carrying something far more powerful than fear, the beginnings of a philosophy that could outlast them both. The city felt different now. The noise of the carriages, the roar of machines, even the shouting of newsboys on the corners, all seemed like a chorus, urging him forward. Napoleon delivered the first complete draft of his manuscript to a trusted publisher. The words were imperfect, rough around the edges, but alive with conviction. He had captured not only the voices of Ford, Edison, and Wright, but also the resilience of the humble shopkeeper and the unyielding courage of Clara. Far from the public eye, Richard Bennett's empire began to collapse. Clara's relentless reporting had exposed his corruption, peeling away the layers of power he had hidden behind for so long. His name, once spoken with fear, now carried the weight of scandal. In Pittsburgh, Carnegie lay in his bed, weakened by age, the fire in his eyes flickering but not gone. When Napoleon placed the manuscript in his hands, the old man's lips curved into a faint smile. "You have done," he whispered, "what even I could not. You have built not a fortune, hill, but a legacy, one that belongs to all who dare to dream." Months later, Napoleon stood at the front of a crowded lecture hall. Young men and women filled every seat, notebooks open, eyes burning with questions and hope. The air buzzed not with wealth or machines, but with possibility. Clara stood at his side, her presence a reminder of the price they had both paid. Napoleon looked over the audience, his voice steady, his heart full. "It is not my success," he said quietly. "It is yours. It always was." The principles of greatness do not belong to the few. They belong to everyone who chooses to believe, to persist, and to never let fear dictate their path. The hall erupted in applause, but Napoleon did not bask in it. He knew the work was only beginning. His mission had never been about himself. It was about lighting a torch that others could carry forward. And in that moment, the legacy of success was no longer hidden in secret rooms or guarded by the powerful. It belonged to the world. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the mind of true success and the lessons hidden in this incredible story. If you want to take it even further, check out the link in the description and on our channel for Unlock the Millionaire Mind, a program designed to help you apply these principles in your own life. Remember, the path to success isn't just about knowing the secrets, it's about taking action. So, go ahead, unlock your potential, and start building your legacy today.